Hello, hello, hello. Welcome into the Fantasy Life Show right here. We are so excited to have you here going through all things Senior Bowl. Kendall Valenzuela with you. And of course, it's Thor Thursdays. We're talking with Thor Nystrom. Thor, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kendall. Excited to talk about some Senior Bowl with you today.
Yes, let's do it. All right, it's Thor Thursday, so let's get into it from our friends over at DraftKings. All right, Thor, like we said, it's Thor Thursdays from our friends over at DraftKings. We are talking all things Senior Bowl today. So first off, I just have to let the people know, obviously, you're going to be there. So that's just huge. I mean, it's fun.
It is very fun. It is one of the things every year that I look forward to the most. It's great being down there at the field, great watching the prospects, great bumping into NFL personnel around town, sometimes at the bars later at night. And it's good to see people from the industry again. It's like our class reunion twice a year as Senior Bowl and the Combine. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
What's the go-to dinner spot? Are we going to you mentioned to me a Waffle House? Like where are we going here at the Senior Bowl, Thor? Where are we going?
Waffle House is pre-practice mandatory. Okay. There in Mobile. You get by that Waffle House by the stadium, and then it doesn't really matter where you go out to eat, but people typically end up at Veets later on at night.
I love it. All right. Well, like I said, it's Thor Thursdays. We are going through all things Senior Bowl today, going through some of the guys that you're really going to keep an eye on. But Thor, for anyone that doesn't really know about the Senior Bowl, I think we have to start at the very top, make it easy for everyone on why people really should care about the Senior Bowl when it's going on.
Well, last year, 43% of the players that were drafted in the draft came from the Senior Bowl's roster, including first rounders, of course. Probably most prominently, you'd probably say Michael Penix and Bo Nix. But, they say that the draft starts in Mobile, and Jim Nagy and those folks, they're not necessarily wrong. Once again, we're going to have first-round prospects there, and every round there on out, we will have representatives from the Senior Bowl. It's the second marquee, the second biggest marquee pre-draft event outside of the NFL Combine.
So is it kind of seniors coming in, trying to prove themselves, trying to help their draft stock a little bit too? Is it you're going to see guys that maybe you didn't necessarily know? Of course, you knew them during the season, but maybe some names that regular fans didn't really know?
Yeah, and you get a shot to see G5 players coming up, competing on the same playing field as the high, FB Power 5 guys, as well as D2 guys. They've had D3 guys there. Again, everybody on an equal playing field. The one-on-one drills always draw the most eyes during practice. Tank Dell and Ladd McConkey, the last 2 years, are two guys who just lit it up in one-on-ones. They saw their draft stock begin to spike there. But yeah, that you're going there to try to improve your draft stock in front of the entire NFL. You have the media on one side of the stadium, you have the NFL on the other side of the stadium, and you're out there trying to make money. So that's what it is. It's an open job interview where a ton of money is on the line.
And Thor, before we get into all these players, like I said, we're going to talk about a few of your favorites that you're really going to watch out for here. But what's your favorite part of the week and the weekend and the game? Like what have you loved ever since you started going about, just the Senior Bowl?
Watching the prospects for sure. Just being there, you can't really, a lot of these guys, as you know, Kendall, I cover college football. And so these guys that are out there, I've covered them for 3, 4, 5 years. And most of them I have seen numerous times live, mostly on television. This is an opportunity to be dang near at field level, watching all these guys again on an even playing field. It's not against different competition. You don't have to extrapolate anything. They are head to head against each other. And then getting that up close exposure, you get a different sense for the way that people move. Ladd McConkey, before I went to the Senior Bowl last year, I considered him shifty and a solid receiver. But when I was down there at Mobile, again, near field level, you saw that it was an impossibility for defensive backs to stay with him in one-on-one. They just couldn't stay with his footwork. It was the same thing with Tank Dell. People started grabbing Tank Dell by the jersey the second day of practice because they were sick of getting singed by him. But it's stuff where, the normal game conditions, sometimes a guy like Tank Dell, you're facing the lesser competition. Now we jump up. Those guys can't cover him either. So it's just cool getting that up close exposure.
And you get to hang out with our producer Matt Swing. So I mean, what else is better than you guys going and getting a Waffle House waffle and taking a picture? You'll have to tweet it out or something so we can all follow along.
Count on it, Kendall. Count on it.
Yes,
and I will be
there we
introducing
go.
Mr. Swing to that Mobile Waffle House. That's for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, if you're not following Thor Nystrom, you need to be doing that over there on Twitter, on X, and make sure you go because he will be down there, boots on the ground for the weekend. Before we get into these names, Thor, let's go hear from our friends over at DraftKings. All right, football fans, things are getting real. Whether your team has made it to the conference championships or not, there's still plenty of ways to enjoy the games. Get in on the action right now with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbooks. They are offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. Don't let this slip away. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. All right, Thor, let's get into a little bit of the quarterback previews here. Now, you sent a list of guys that you're kind of going to be watching out for. And so, talking about just those guys up front, you had a list, and we're going to see it on the screen here. You said Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, and then Jalen Milroe. So I think to keep this kind of open-ended here, Thor, I really actually want to know, when you look at these names, like which quarterback here on this list has the chance to rise up draft boards the most after the weekend in Mobile?
Easily Jalen Milroe. He's the one who has the most on the line here. He has the best tools. Physically, you can't compare many quarterbacks to him, and I'm talking going back in the last 20 years of the NFL. He is an incredible athlete at 6'2", 225, and he has a bazooka arm. You can kind of think of him as a miniature version of Anthony Richardson, with that ridiculous athleticism. Those two guys ran for just about the same yards per game there last year in the SEC. And then with that bazooka arm, it's just Milroe is a little bit smaller, 2 inches shorter, about 20 pounds lighter coming into the NFL. But Milroe is a far better passer coming into the NFL. Richardson, he didn't have much experience coming in. Milroe is also more experienced than he is. But it is the passing thing is what people are going to be keeping an eye on. He is going to draw oohs and ahs in that crowd when he goes deep because he has that shotgun arm. And he can push that ball 60 plus yards down the field. He's got feathery touch with it. It's the stuff in the short and intermediate area, the timing concepts that has Milroe's game has not advanced to that point yet. So you're getting a raw guy, but these pre-draft all-star events, exhibitions like this are perfectly designed for players like this. And I expect Milroe to impress and for him to be one of those risers coming out of the Senior Bowl.
And if anyone didn't check it out yet, you have to go and see Thor's latest mock draft over there at fantasylife.com. You changed it from the Las Vegas Raiders now to the New Orleans Saints. So that's going to get everyone, wanting to kind of see that. But it's one where I do agree with you, Thor. The things that I've seen, the things that I've read, looks like Jalen Milroe could be the one that really, just makes his draft stock a little bit better going into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it's a showcase where, the flashes that you see, they're typically those athletic flashes. And for the quarterbacks, the guys who can get it downfield and they're completing those things in one-on-one, 50 plus yards downfield. And then the escapability, we don't get to see the, going full speed much in the practices outside of in the game. You get to the end of the week there, but you will sometimes see in the team scrimmages, the quarterbacks are given an opportunity, if it's not there, to run just a little bit. And yeah, he is going to impress with that athletic package and the howitzer arm that he has.
All right, talking about other quarterbacks and one that might just be, a new shiny name because now national champion. When you look at Will Howard from Ohio State, what are your kind of expectations with him coming off just an obviously thrilling and great season for them, ends with a natty? What are your expectations?
Will Howard might have improved his stock more than any other player in the college football playoff. That's a guy where, let's say Ohio State is one and done and he doesn't look good against Tennessee. It's a guy that could have maybe gone in the 6th round. Now I believe that he is in heavy contention for quarterback 4 in this class. You have a little bit of a drop off after Milroe. Everyone knows who the top two guys are, but there is a big group of guys that are competing right now for QB4. QB4 could end up going on day 2. If he doesn't, he's going to go very early on day 3. And like I said, Howard has moved himself to the forefront of that discussion based on the way that he played in the college football playoff. 6'4", 237 pounds, and he's a very good athlete. He's also a tough runner. We didn't get to see quite as much of that at Ohio State as we saw at Kansas State, but he is happy to put his shoulder down and try to run someone over around the goal line. He also has a bit of arm talent. He throws a nice tight spiral, a catchable ball. He can get the ball downfield. It's not a bazooka arm, but it is more than adequate enough arm talent and arm strength for the NFL. And again, he comes in that big NFL ready package, physical package, and he has that athleticism. He will be 24, though. He will turn 24 as a rookie, so he's a little bit on the older side. That's the things to watch out for. But it's a quarterback, again, who is ascending, and this is an opportunity for him, again, to push that draft stock up, make a bigger argument for QB4. Kendall, Quinn Ewers, this was confirmed by Jim Nagy. Quinn Ewers had accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. It's just that the public never figured it out because Ewers wanted Nagy to hold off on the announcement until after the college football playoff. Ewers pulled out of the event right after Texas was eliminated. He cited an injury. Jim Nagy did not say what that injury was. Quinn Ewers was suffering from an oblique injury during the season. I'm not sure if it was a re-aggravation of that or something else. But the whole point being, Quinn Ewers is a guy right now that most of the draft media would probably put in pole position for that QB4 spot. You have a golden opportunity, if you're Will Howard, a guy who is coming on, and ascending at the right time, to try to bypass Quinn Ewers, who will not be in Mobile, with your performance down there on the field at the Senior Bowl.
And I mean, he's not going to have Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, he's not going to have Emeka Egbuka. But how important is it just not only for Will Howard, but all the quarterbacks coming in to kind of show and prove that they can lift the performance, like lift the ceiling of others around them? I feel like that's a big part of it as well when you're looking through the process.
1,000%. Yeah. And that's coming at it from the other direction that we just did, of like the small school guy who's jumping up and needs to prove it against the better competition. Will Howard, who is coming off this fabulous statistical season, but you're right. He played with the young Julio Jones and Jeremiah Smith. He played with a guy who's going to go in the first round in April, in Emeka Egbuka. He played with 2 early second round running backs as well. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on, but so much talent around him. Now, when the talent is analogous, right? I mean, all the quarterbacks are going to be working with the same offensive line, the same receivers. How do you acquit yourself apples to apples against those other guys on your roster and out there on the Senior Bowl practice field? That is something to watch for sure.
We've got 3 other quarterbacks here, and I think I'm just going to kind of let you choose your own adventure with this one. But curious, when you look at the other 3 that we have on your list here, which quarterback are you going to be kind of paying extra attention to here?
I mean, Jackson Dart's probably the one where he has the highest band of outcomes, where he could end up getting the highest. He is another guy who is in prominent contention for that QB4 spot in April. Former 5-star recruit. He began at USC, then he transferred in with the Portal King Lane Kiffin and spent the end of his career at Ole Miss. I like his arm, and I like sort of the arm talent, the different stuff he can do. He's one of those guys can throw from multiple slots. He's a very comfortable and natural thrower. He gets the ball out quickly. I like his release, and he put up bazooka stats in college. The thing where you get trepidatious about Jackson Howard, he has all the pedigree, he has all the statistical backing behind him, etc. And he's got enough athleticism as well. That's a guy that steals yards out of the pocket. But he comes from a gimmicky offense where they gave him pre-snap reads. You didn't often see Jackson Howard going to the 3rd, 4th progression, other side of the field from his main read in college. Lane Kiffin is so good with his designs and then giving the quarterback those pre-snap answers. Those were the things when that first look was there, the second look was there. Jackson Dart would look very good. Where he did not look good at all is when those were taken away and all of a sudden the heat of the pass rush started to get there. He just is not natural snapping the head to the 3rd and the 4th read and or knowing at that point there's nothing here. I got to get outside the pocket, throw it away, or maybe I have the running lane. It is to this point for Jackson Dart. It's been the binary thing of first read, second read, I'm bailing. And we need to be able to expand that. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm saying that we haven't seen it yet. And those guys concern me when they come out of those sort of Mickey Mouse offenses in college.
When I look at Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon, and I feel like maybe Thor, this is too easy because you look at Oregon, you say, okay, maybe it's going to be similar to what we saw with Bo Nix in Mobile, right? Someone that makes people look and reevaluate their kind of projection for him going forward. Is that kind of what you could see from Gabriel over the weekend?
Well, the thing with him is, I don't know if he can get over. Like, we're not going to see a stronger arm than we've seen to this point. It's one of the most experienced college quarterbacks that we've ever had. He's had over 2,100 career snaps, but he's a shade under 6 foot. He's a shade under 200 pounds. So he's your pint-sized lefty in this class. I consider him a homeless man's Tua. It's probably too easy of a comparison, but it's another lefty coming out of Hawaii who's a good rhythm timing thrower who does not have the howitzer downfield. And Tua is a little bit bigger. Tua has a little bit more arm talent, of course. Those are the things that Gabriel needs to overcome here. He is very comfortable in the pocket. He is your pilot who has spent 10,000 hours in the cockpit already. So he knows what he's seeing. He's comfortable with that. And short and intermediate, he's going to get the ball to where it needs to go on time. It's the thing of pressing it downfield. He doesn't have the howitzer, so it needs to be the one-on-one shots. One interesting thing about him in college was he was actually a solid downfield thrower, but you noticed a certain quirk with his game that I'm curious if this holds to the NFL. What he's good at is denoting coverages right away. Again, this is a fighter pilot who's been up more than 10,000 hours in the air. He knows the look that he's getting right away. And on his downfield throws, he throws it with really good loft and he can get it down there with touch. He just doesn't have the RPMs on that thing. So what he will do is right away when he denotes the single coverage, a lot of times you'd see this with single high, one of the safety goes the other way and he knows he's got the receiver running the go route to the other way. So he knows he's one-on-one. He will throw that ball early and get rid of that when the guy's 20 yards downfield and just try to lead him with that rainbow ball. That worked for him in college. Will that translate? Another part of his game is he was so good in the intermediate area, throwing guys, a crosser and getting that ball, hit the guy in the hands right there, whatnot. But he doesn't have good velocity. So in the NFL, when those throwing windows start to get smaller, will he have the requisite velocity to fit it in there? And then will his deep ball game work? Again, it was a little bit quirky in college. Is that going to work at the next level? Those are the things to watch out for there. But yeah, he is a veteran hand there. I expect him to hang around the NFL for a long time. He will run your offense for you. And short and intermediate, he can be relied upon. He'll make people miss in the backfield. He's slippery.
Okay.
He has a little bit of athleticism to him as well.
Hey, not the worst getting a comp from, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, there's a lot of other quarterbacks you could have gone with, but I like that one. Finishing things off here with the quarterbacks and Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. What are your kind of expectations when he's coming up for this Senior Bowl?
I would like Riley Leonard to try to test downfield in this exhibition. We know short and intermediate. He's a decent thrower. He can do some stuff with timing as well. And the thing that I like about his game, 6'4", around 220 pounds, athletic, and he's a tough and effective runner that Notre Dame made great use of. Against Ohio State, he was the only guy that had any success running the ball for Notre Dame in that national title game. And again, a very tough kid. His lower body mechanics are my issue with him, and I think this is why he gets into trouble with accuracy the further you go down the field. Not really a guy that scares you down the field. And again, the footwork going back, he sort of has this like hitchy, gallopy type back wind up when he's going back in his drop, and then when he sets to throw, he doesn't always get that base under him, that sturdy platform under him. Sometimes gets a little haphazard with the feet, and you can see errancy with the accuracy because of this. I would like to see him continue to work on that. It's another guy who can struggle under duress because those mechanics aren't always there with him, and he needs an extra beat. So that's something for him to work on. And he's a little bit older, so you wonder if he can get to that point. Yeah, presumably this has been worked on quite a bit with him. But what you do get is in a big frame, you get a good athlete. You know he can run. He's a good leader. The coaches and the teammates like him. I think of him as a 85% discounted version of Daniel Jones. They came from the same place at Duke. They have extremely similar games. It's just Daniel Jones is a bit better thrower with a bit more arm talent.
We're going to talk through some running backs, Thor. I know you've got a handful of them that you definitely want to break down for the Senior Bowl. But before we do that, let's go and talk to our friends over at Bud Light.
Sunday. Time to suit up.
This is like half zips, kind of a quarter zip.
And sacrifice your body.
This is fun.
Because no matter how hard you football, it's easy to Sunday.
All right, talking through some of these running backs, Thor, that you're going to be seeing at the Senior Bowl, not only getting waffles with producer Matt Swing, but you are going to be working there as well. So we're going to kind of see on the screen like who you really want to focus on this weekend for the running backs. And here are the names right here. But I want to kind of throw it to you again, choose your own adventure of which guy you think can really improve his draft stock after the Senior Bowl.
People are going to accuse me of being a homer, but this is how I feel. Devin Neal from Kansas, Rock Chalk, where I went to undergrad. But I've watched Devin Neal his entire career, and I love that kid's game. He has ridiculous feet. You don't see guys who have feet this quick, and it's one of those guys who he has good vision as well, and he marries what he's seeing to his feet. You get the really, really quick direction changes. It's also difficult to square him up because of how good his feet are. And so there's a lot of off-angle tackle attempts against Devin Neal. Devin Neal is not a powerhouse. He's slightly on the undersized type thing. He's not going to push the pile, kind of a thing like that. But his ability to force those off-angle attempts, it allows him to get yards after contact. He's also a very good receiver. He's very slippery. He gets out there in space, and he can create separation with those hard cuts in the dirt and then open the throwing window. And then he's a problem after the catch as well. Had numerous explosive receiving plays in college. So I'm going to go with Devin Neal here, a guy that I think is being slept on right now.
When I was doing a little bit of research for this show, I read a column that said, sit back, relax if you don't know about Neal, and just put on the tape that he had against Colorado. And so I did. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, this is all you need. Like, this is what you need to see how good that this kid could be.
Some people, you see the comps of the people who have watched him, they are all lofty. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. The high end comp that you'll see, maybe, okay, I'll start on the lower end of the comp. I'm starting to see a lot of Bucky Irving for Devin Neal. Lots of Bucky Irving. And it's the same sort of, this guy is more than the sum of his parts. He is skilled. He has the ridiculous feet. And why can no one ever get a flush tackle attempt on the guy? Right, he just so slippery. He's like a mirage for defenders, right? It's like now here, now I'm here, now I'm here, and then just slippery. Understands the angles and everything like that, and then you get the receiving utility with him as well. The berserker bonanza comp that I have seen for him on the other end of it is Alvin Kamara. That might be going. Might be going a bit far for me, but again, the ridiculous feet, the well-rounded game, and the guy who is more than the sum of his parts. Alvin Kamara, he went to the combine. It's not like he blew the roof off the building, right? But it was a guy who was just so dang skilled. Just knew how, when he got the ball in his hands, to acquire yards. It's the same thing with Devin Neal.
Both good pass catching backs too, so something that we can love and think about for fantasy football going forward as well. Next up for your running backs with this game here, Donovan Edwards from Michigan. That's kind of where I want to go next because I've seen a lot of it was a disappointing kind of final season for Edwards, but still a national champion over there with Michigan. Spent all 4 years at Michigan as well. Won that championship in 2023. So what are kind of the things you see in his game, and what are you expecting to see in Mobile for him?
I have a comp for you, Kendall, and I'm not sure that you're going to like it after I explain it. Do you remember an Arizona State running back named Kalen Ballage?
Yeah, I do. I don't love it, Thor. Is that where we're going?
Donovan Edwards is skinny Kalen Ballage. He is 15 pounds lighter. He is just about the same height. He has the same thing of he's a really, really good athlete, and he also is a good receiver. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this guy is super intriguing. The reason I was out on Kalen Ballage in his draft process is the same reason I'm going to be out on Donovan Edwards in this one. What I said about Kalen Ballage when he was coming out was he runs as though he is Mr. Magoo, or he runs as though he has drunk goggles on. It's the same thing with Donovan Edwards. He is the most frustrating watch ever. When that hole is there for him, when he can see it, that's where you get the explosion. You saw this in the national title game, and then he's running away from the national title game, of course, in 2023, and then he's running away from the defense. You will more often see him running into the back of his offensive lineman in front of him when there is a cutback lane, a little bit to the left. If he had just seen it, he could have been into open space. He doesn't get into open space nearly as much as you would think with how athletic he is. He's 6'1", 210, and very, very explosive, but he just doesn't get to use that as much as you want him to because he can't get out into space because of that lack of vision, the lack of feel. Doesn't always run with tempo either. This is the reason why a guy this talented was never the RB1 type guy at Michigan. He was behind Blake Corum the previous couple years. Corum got to go to the NFL last year. Edwards stuck around. He wanted this to be a showcase year, and then he was bypassed by Khalil Mullings and was a complimentary back again. He presumably will be a complimentary back early on in the NFL, but he needs to improve his feel and his vision, or it could be a shorter stay for him in the NFL.
Shout out to Kalen Ballage, though. Thank you for the throwback. I mean, what fourth round Miami Dolphins 2018. So he was still drafted. He's still around and he's still out there. But thanks for the throwback on Kalen Ballage there. Forks up for the Sun Devils, though. We absolutely love to see it. Another one. Let's go over to Ollie Gordon, the second out of Oklahoma State, and kind of what you've seen from him. Everything that I read, Thor, and everything that you've kind of put out is that he does everything pretty well, right? When you look at vision, when you look at contact balance, when you look at speed. I've seen comps. We're talking comps here. The highest one that I've seen is maybe like looking at him as more of a Najee Harris type. But what have you seen from him in college, and what again are your expectations?
Well, we got to see plenty of him. He played early on as a freshman. He excelled. And then in 2023, that is where he had his national coming out party, 1,732 rushing yards on 6.1 yards per carry. Importantly, that's when Oklahoma State had a good offensive line. This year, they had a bad offensive line, and Ollie Gordon fell to 808 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Big kid, 6'2", 225. He's physical. He presses the line, like that stuff. And he has decent build-up speed. It's not that the explosion isn't really there, but he can build up. But it's more of a take, you get what is blocked for you kind of a guy, as opposed to someone that is going to create for himself. And this is the biggest reason for this is because he has super stiff hips. So he's not going to make people miss. And then in conjunction with that, he runs way too high. And that thing you are not going to fix. He just runs upright like a flag. And so he provides this big area radius for defenders to hit. He takes a lot of punishment. So that's something that you need to keep an eye on as well. But he is that big guy who will attack that line quickly. He might turn into more of a short yardage guy at the next level. Again, the lack of speed, he will get chased down from behind. And even then, he needs to build up to that. But I like him in pass pro. And he's a reliable enough dump off guy as well. So he's at least playable on passing downs. But he needs to show the NFL that he can get back on track after finishing with less than half the yards this past season than he did the season before behind a depreciated offensive line.
Could he be a bell cow back in the NFL? Do you see that happening for him or no?
I mean, in terms of, I don't think he could handle it in terms of his skill set. And the reason that I say that is because of those stiff hips. I don't like his change of direction ability. And again, being that big sort of target, easy to hit. He's a big pinata, right? Like as a run, it's just the easiest sort of target there. I do like, aspects of his game. Again, a big kid, he runs aggressively and he is going to get what's blocked for him. But I just wonder if you're talking about more of like Latavius Murray, Leroy Horde to kick it way back in my Vikings fandom. A guy like that who, if you ask him to get 1 yard, he'll get 3 yards. And if you ask him to get 5 yards, he'll give you 3 yards.
Needs 5, wants 3. I love to hear that when you're going through your process here. The other two that you have, I'm going to throw it out to you. RJ Harvey from UCF, and then you've got Damian Martinez from Miami. Who are you more excited between those two to watch in Mobile?
these guys are on the opposite end of the spectrum because Harvey is your little sort of scat back receiving guy, home run hitter, and then Martinez is your big 240 plus pound hammer back. Harvey is the one I want to see, though. Harvey is really interesting. So he's only 5'9", but he's 210 pounds, and I think he could even add a little, maybe get up closer to 215. Classic bowling ball build. But unlike most of the bowling balls that are more of like the shifty guys and then they break tackles behind the line, RJ Harvey, it has world-class speed, and he is looking to hit home runs every single time. He ran a 4.41 coming out of high school. I think when he goes to the NFL Combine, you will see 4.3 as the first two numbers when he comes out. And again, a guy with this compact build, it makes him really interesting. I also really like his agility. One cool thing about his tape, he'll get through the line really quick when that hole is open for him. Again, he is looking for that home run. When he denotes the danger, though, he's really, really smooth at just the bounce to the outside and then get around the corner. He has a really good feel for it. He can't do that quite as much as he liked at UCF because he could outrun everyone. He knew he could get to the corner and then he could outrun everyone. He's going to have a bit more discretion with it in the NFL, but he also has the body armor to run inside more. So I'm curious to see, will that aspect of his game improve a little bit? I like his contact balance, and he, because of that sort of the frame that he has, where it's like a diamond that's all been packed in there, he can ricochet off of off-angle attempts. So he has a cool game. He's a good receiver, and when he gets that ball, he's the same home run hitter. If he's got space in front of him, you might see a home run. That's what he is looking for. The one thing he needs to work on, it's ball security. It's a kid who was on the field the last 3 years. Each one of them, he fumbled the ball 3 times, so 9 total over the last 3 years. He has to take better care of the ball because in the NFL, he's going to be a top 2 running back, but it's going to be a platoon thing almost assuredly. And when he is on the field for his half of the snaps, you can't be coughing the ball up.
Speedy runner with great burst and a big play threat. I mean, that's things that we all love to hear, especially when we're talking about it from a fantasy angle. So I like that. There's a lot of teams that need that too. Like when we're just going to get into some of the just overall free agents for some teams, like there's not a good running back free agency out there. So they're going to be looking towards the draft to do it here. Finishing off with Damian Martinez from Miami. What have you seen from him over there? And what do you think that you're going to see in Mobile?
Yeah, Damian Martinez, he showed us that he was scheme versatile. You know, he went from the way upper left corner of the United States, Corvallis, Oregon, down to Miami, Florida for his final season in college. And when he was at Oregon State, it was more of the pro style, physical running type stuff. He was next to DJ Uiagalelei, a 240 plus pounder as well. So you had a lot of beef coming forward, but the defense knew what was coming. At Miami, it was the opposite, where it was Shannon Dawson's air raid. So you'd have 3-4 receivers out wide, and you'd have the thinner boxes for him to run against. So we got to see him in both kind of schemes. I like that. He's a really big kid, and he runs physically. That's one of those guys up to the contact point. You better bring your lunch pail because Damian Martinez is going to drop that shoulder, and then it's 245 pounds running right into you at full speed. He's not much of a receiver, though. So Damian Martinez, hey, if you wanted to put together a solid committee backfield in the NFL, you would want to draft him with the guy that we just talked about, RJ Harvey. Damian Martinez is your early down grinder. He's like remember Jordan Howard from a couple of years ago? Mm-hmm. Not a good passing down back, but he was a good early down grinder. And you got to pair him with a good receiver, you know, an RJ Harvey type. So I like his game, but he's limited in that regard.
Before we get on to some of the wide receivers that you're excited to see, let's go and hear from our friends over at Mike's Hard Lemonade. Whether you're celebrating a playoff spot or nursing a tough season, you've earned the right to relax with a cold Mike's, because no matter the outcome, you put in the work, and that calls for a well-deserved reward. All right, now we're going through the wide receivers here, Thor. And again, you're going to be boots on the ground. You're going to be in Mobile, Alabama. And we are so excited to get your analysis while you are there for the Senior Bowl. But looking at the list that you have of wide receivers that you really want to pay attention to over the weekend, we're going to see that come up on the screen here in a second. But again, who do you think could have a huge weekend? Who are you most excited to see out of these 5 guys right here?
I'm going to be like Lord here and go with Royals. Jalen Royals from Utah State. Shout out Lord. But Jalen Royals is a kid. Is going to open a lot of eyes next week in Mobile. He comes from Utah State. It's one of those under the radar G5 guys, and he missed the last half of his last season. He suffered a foot injury. Importantly, though, it wasn't a devastating foot injury. It's a foot injury where he is going to be able to return for the pre-draft process. And so we should see him out there next week in Mobile. This is a guy, and I'm happy that he didn't push it with that foot injury either, because where his special sauce, it's the way that he moves. He's like out there, he's like a jet ski. It's just effortless propulsion forward, and then he can yank it back whenever he wants to. So it's really difficult for guys to get a beat on him, and then he can run by whoever he wants as well. It's a guy who is just licking Mountain West cornerbacks here the past couple years. Now he's going to get his opportunity in those one-on-ones where I expect him to absolutely dominate against Power 4 competition. The one-on-ones in Mobile for the receivers and the cornerbacks, it's made for guys like Royals that are so shifty and have that really quick acceleration. I also like, and this will be something to watch out for too next week in Mobile, he has a natural feel for once he gets the step on you. There's guys who have that athleticism to get downfield, but they do not do a good job of stacking the defender behind him. And so you will see guys catch up and then give them company at the catch point, knock it away, contest it in some way, intercept the ball, whatever. Royals does a really good job of pinning the dude to his back. And so if the quarterback has a good throw there, he's always going to get the best of it. I really like him after the catch as well. He's a guy who carves you up in the intermediate range, because if you hit him on the hands in space, he turns up field really smoothly, and then you got a problem on your hands. I think Royals is going to be the talk of Mobile next week.
Ooh, I like it. The one thing I did, want to ask you about him was his contested catches, being able to come down with some of those. Is that something that you're paying especially important, not important, but paying attention to? Because I did, reading in these pre-processes, that was something he kind of struggled with.
Yeah, that's not as much his game. Of the thing,
Okay.
like Alec Ayaminor, a guy that we're going to talk about in a second, that's more of his game. But it's not that Royals can't win downfield. That is why it's so, that thing I was talking about with the stacking, because if he gets company downfield and now it becomes a jump ball thing, especially in the NFL, that's where I would expect him to lose. But he has all the speed in the world. It's very difficult to catch him from behind. And when the throw is there, when he has that step, he's going to make sure to stack that defensive back behind him to prevent that. So if the throw is there, that's where you see the explosive downfield plays with Royals. And he also gives you the possibility of an explosive element out of throws intermediate or even short, because of his run after the catch ability, the acceleration, the speed, and then the agility. He has good vision as a runner too. So it's a guy where in the NFL, I don't know if he's a wide receiver 1, but I think he's a fabulous wide receiver 2, if not.
Okay, well, let's go over to the other side then and talk about Alec Ayaminor, like you just said, out of Stanford. What are his traits? What do you like in this guy? And then what could he bring to Mobile?
Travis Hunter never wants to see Alec Ayaminor ever again. He does not want to see him in the NFL. We were all introduced to Alec Ayaminor late in 2023 when Stanford played Colorado, and Alec Ayaminor lit up Travis Hunter like we did not see Travis Hunter lit up in any other game in his college career. And it was downfield, it was just Randy Moss stuff. He was little brother in Travis Hunter. Like, it was just wild to watch. He had over 200 receiving yards in that game. Alec Ayaminor is a late bloomer from Canada who now is appearing as his game is starting to take off here the last couple of years. He looks a lot like Michael Pittman. And I realize for our new NFL fans, that might not seem like a compliment. Michael Pittman coming out of USC and his first few years in the NFL with the Colts, you're talking about a similar type prospect in terms of the big frame, big boundary receiver, and a solid athlete at that size. Not a ridiculous athlete, but a solid athlete. I like his hands, especially in that frame. I love his downfield ability. That's what we were just talking about. He had 12 contested catches last year on a Stanford team where Alec Ayaminor was a marked man. They didn't have anybody else. No one was scared of their running game, the other receivers, whatever. And so they would just chuck it up to Alec Ayaminor down the field. Ends up coming out with 12 contested catches. The one other thing about Ayaminor, and this is something you will see on the field in Mobile, a lot of times the running concepts, you do the team scrimmage thing, the receivers and the defensive backs, they sort of dog it on the outside, if it's like a run up the middle or whatever. the defensive backs that are lined up across from Menor, I guarantee you will not be ready for him blocking. He is going to get after some people, and he's going to plant some defensive backs into the dirt in Mobile next week. This is a guy who is a ferocious blocker as a boundary receiver, something that needs to be kept in mind for next week, of course, but also for his NFL draft stock, because there's some coaches out there who in the NFL who absolutely fetishize the blocking with the boundary receivers.
Menor being able to kind of show that he can deliver into Thor more of with an underwhelming offense and being able to play against tough competition like Colorado, I thought that was also impressive. Just looking through everything that he was able to do, delivering with an offense that isn't, a juggernaut that you've seen before, I think is still super impressive. So I'm glad you mentioned him, because that might be one of the most excited on that list of wide receivers to see for me. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I just think he's guaranteed to be a super duper reliable number 2 in the NFL. Like, that's just what the possession receiver looks like on the other side. Like, you can think of a guy I liked in Mobile a couple years ago, Michael Wilson. Menor is probably a better version of a Michael Wilson, in that there's a little bit more juice down the field, and he has better get up in the air and go and get it in those contested things downfield. But it's another guy who just profiles very early in their career, will be starting as a possession receiver across from a team's wide receiver one on the other boundary.
Let's go over to Iowa State and a little bit of Jaden Higgins here, and what you kind of saw from him in college, and what things he could bring to Mobile.
Jaden Higgins, his game jumped up this year. One of the scouting services over the summer for the NFL gave him a round 4 grade. He is assuredly going to go above that. I also think not only is he going to test well, I think he's a little bit bigger than people think he is. He was listed at 6'3" at Iowa State. My measurements on him were 6'3" and 3/4. So closer to 6'4", but it's another guy that can get downfield, and he moves better than you would think for his size. Iowa State was fascinating because they had just kind of an okay kind of quarterback, but they had 2 stud receivers, both of whom we're going to see in Mobile, in Higgins and then Jalen Noel. So it's going to be interesting to see those guys. But I just love the leaps and bounds that we saw in Higgins' game this year. 90.3 PFF grade. He saw 130 targets and did a lot of damage there against those Big 12 cornerbacks. So Jaden Higgins is a guy who could be another riser. You talk about the frame that he has, ideal. He has really good athleticism, and he has good ball skills as well. Maybe flew a little bit under the radar because of the college he went to, and then he had another NFL receiver across from him. But this is his opportunity to step out in his own 2 feet.
Between the last 2 guys, we got to talk a little bit about Tez Johnson out of Oregon. We got to talk a little bit about Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. Out of those 2, though, who's kind of at the top of your list?
I would say I've always liked Tez Johnson. Earlier in his career, he played at Troy, a small school in the Sun Belt, and he dominated there. And then he got his opportunity to go to Oregon in a very cool twist of fate for Bo Nix's last season. Why is that cool? Tez Johnson is Bo Nix's adopted brother. And Tez Johnson was the one who always loved Oregon as a kid. It's part of the reason that Bo Nix ended up going there. What we want to ascertain from Tez Johnson in Mobile next week on the practice field, is he Tank Dell or is he Paul Richardson? The stick thin wide receivers like this, you have sort of this huge band of outcomes of what they become in the NFL. We have seen a whole bunch of them fail. And more recently, guys like Tank Dell coming up, holding the flag for these super skinny, undersized, but very good movers like a Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson was great in college. Will the success of a guy like Tank Dell more recently help his draft stock? I would assume so. I'll tell you one other thing that would help. If he goes and dominates people in those one-on-ones, just like Tank Dell did 2 years ago, that's when Tank Dell became a day 2 pick. He wouldn't have been if not for that. You still would have had the things of the competition, et cetera, et cetera. Tez Johnson, you go out there and lick people. That is where you're going to start to get that chatter. So that's the interesting thing to watch out for with him.
I'm hoping that it's more of the other half, like a Tank Dell, like you said, because Tank Dell, if it wasn't for all these injuries, which has just been so unfortunate, I really like the comp with Johnson here. Let's go to Restrepo here from Miami to finish it out with the wide receivers. What have you seen from him in his college games?
You talk about like Menor, Higgins, Royals, guys with the upside. You're sort of dreaming on that. Restrepo, it's the ridiculously high floor. Like his floor and ceiling it's like a mini home. Like we know what Xavier Restrepo is going to be. We saw it this year with Cam Ward when they put up the bazooka numbers. He is an ultra reliable slot receiver. That's just what he is. You're not going to play him on the boundary. He is your slot receiver, but like I said, extremely reliable, great hands. The guy was targeted 95 times this past season and in big spots. Miami had a great season. He only had 2 drops. I love the way that he runs routes. He is consistently open, especially the quick stuff that he has to do over the intermediate. You need to get the separation really quick, even just a step of it, and then get hit on the hands. That's what he opens up for the quarterbacks. You saw that plenty with Cam Ward. I'll be curious to see what kind of an athlete he is a month later when we go to Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. However, what I do know about him is he is going to get the separation. He's one of those guys who is going to acquit himself tremendously well in the one-on-ones down there in Mobile.
And I think that's the best part about this whole process, Thor, is when you look at these kind of second tier wide receivers, right? And you say, okay, they're all going to be viewed a little bit differently, right? From these NFL teams. And it's kind of based from what I've seen on what value they want. If they want someone that's like a ready slot player, then they go to a guy like Restrepo. If they want someone that's maybe bigger, maybe that bigger downfield threat, then maybe they go to a Jaden Higgins. It's kind of just with these guys, what they need and what they can cater these guys to on their teams already.
That's right. I mean, you think about 2 drafts ago, Josh Downs. I really like Josh Downs. What was Josh Downs not? He's not a boundary receiver, but what is he? He's an extremely efficient slot guy, extremely reliable. I expect Xavier Restrepo he's not the exact same player as Josh Downs, but to be viewed in that sort of similar vein, you're probably talking about the 3rd round, assuming that he tests well enough. He's not going to test, he's not going to blow the roof off of Indianapolis, but that's where I would expect him to go around there, and that's what you see him as.
Let's go through some tight ends here. Let's finish it off with the preview that you have going on here for the Senior Bowl. Which again, choose your own adventure here, Thor. When you see the tight ends on your screen, you've got 3 of them that you really are going to be paying attention to here in Mobile. Which one are you the most excited about, though?
You got to start with Harold Fannin Jr., the guy who caught 117 balls for 1,555 yards and 10 touchdowns, not over his career, this past season at Bowling Green. The guy he is a ridiculous receiver. Now he is undersized, and this is a guy the NFL has gotten a little bit better at using guys like this. The H-back move type guy, and you can use him in the slot. You can shift him into the backfield. That's the kind of guy that you are getting with Harold Fannin Jr. He is a tremendous receiver, obviously, as those numbers speak to. He's also a good athlete. We'll be curious to see just how well he tests in Indianapolis. That's going to inform some of this stuff. But fabulous receiver. He's going to bring that down to the Senior Bowl, and he's going to do some damage in those on-field drills at the Senior Bowl.
Dynamic after the catch too. That's one that I've read a lot about that, and I've read a lot about him and just his running ability after the catch too. Like we always and listen, the tight end landscape in the NFL, especially I think we saw it this past season, but for fantasy football purposes, it was a little bit rough. So to see someone like that come in with a season that he had at Bowling Green is just incredible there. What about Gunnar Helm out of Texas? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just quickly to your point, he tied for the lead in this class in broken tackles from the tight end position. It was him and Terrence Ferguson with 13, but he was unfair in the MAC.
Yeah, it's just, and that's the funny part when you say his stats and you're like, no, that's not his career in college. That was just this past season. So you need to watch out for this guy. Gunnar Helm out of Texas. What are your expectations for him?
I love Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm after the 2023 season, he went into the office of the tight ends coach, Jeff Banks, and he made the argument, I'm a better player than Jatavian Sanders, the player that he was stuck behind. He had to stay behind him for one more season. So I guess this was after 2022. He had to stick behind him in 2023 as well. But Jatavian went to the NFL, 4th round pick of the Panthers last year. Gunnar Helm got to be the tight end himself. What did he do? He broke all Texas's receiving marks for a tight end while providing better blocking than Jatavian Sanders. Turns out Gunnar Helm was right. Gunnar Helm is a better prospect than Jatavian Sanders. He is analogous as a receiver, not the exact same kind, but qualitatively, and he provides you better blocking. 6'5", 250 pounds. He goes after the ball really, really hard. He has enough speed to get down the seam, but where I like him more is in the intermediate. Very quick change of direction, putting the foot in the dirt, and then he'll get out flat. provide that target for the quarterback. Very, very efficient type guy. Love his hands. He is scheme versatile. He's just a really, really, really solid player who's been overlooked for a long time because he was a 3-star recruit, but a very solid player. Probably going to end up going late round 3, maybe early round 4.
And then to finish off with the tight ends here, you had Mason Taylor out of LSU, who, by the way, if people don't know who Mason Taylor is, you can say one of the positives is that he has pro bloodlines in him. So that's one thing you can watch out for. But what are your expectations with him?
Sure does. Anyone remember Jason? And Mason, he is in a big, he's big and he's an athlete just like his father is. And LSU, I love the way that they used him this year because Garrett Nussmeier, he's the gambler and he goes downfield a lot. They had the receivers they could send downfield. Defenses had to respect it. They used Mason Taylor as the guy to abuse defenses for keeping 2 safeties back. He was the guy and they would design concepts for him. You do like the play action left and then you're bootlegging out to the right, and then it would be Taylor doing the drag over that way, just hit him on the hands. A lot of manufactured touches for him that way, and just slicing and dicing in that intermediate range. He also, the smooth transition from receiver to runner, he's just very smooth. He has those football genes, as you alluded to, Kendall, and so you just see the effortless catching, and now he's turning upfield and turning into the runner. Very, very efficient for that LSU offense this year, and that's what he's going to bring to the NFL as well.
Thor, we've got a little bit of time here, so I want to make sure we can't leave them out. Like any linemen that you're excited about, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, any defenders that you really want to call out here that you're also going to be keeping an eye on in Alabama?
Well, Kendall, in high school, that's where my playing career ended, but it was offensive line that I played. So you know that I love those guys. Ariante Ertare from Minnesota, who played 2 miles from where I'm sitting right now for the Gophers, is one of those guys up there on that list. He had a great collegiate career. He is being mocked late first round, early second round. He's one of those guys that is making that push, trying to get into the first round. Another guy that he is competing with, Armand Mbu from Missouri. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? But those are 2 big guys out there who are jockeying for prime positions there in this tackle class. A couple of the tackle guys at the top, we're not going to see them there. Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, etc. But these guys are competing for the spots right behind them and Josh Simmons. So that's something to keep an eye on.
And you got to keep an eye on your Twitter, on X. We have to be following you. Thor KU is where you can find him there because he's going to be snapping pics at the Waffle House. He's going to be living life in Mobile. I'm so excited for you to go, Thor. What year is this for you? How many times have you gone?
I think this is my 5th or 6th, something like that.
Okay.
So those they know me at the Waffle House.
They know your order. They know exactly what you're going to do there. I absolutely love it. So make sure everyone is going to fantasylife.com. That's where you can find all the articles. We're still going to be doing the show, the Thor Thursdays. We've got you boots on the ground over there in Mobile. So it's going to be such a fun week for you to go out there. And again, Thor KU on Twitter, on X is where you can give them a follow. Me at Valenzuela17. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. Fantasylife.com for all the articles, 100% free. And we will see you next time.